All right, back here with another video, and I'm already going to tell you right now I'm in a little bit of pain. You might ask why. Normally, I do my recording on my S22, but the S22 is what's right here. So I wanted to do some recording on my Sony Xperia 5 Mark III, but two things happened. Last night I was on a Google Duo call, and the phone just started overheating. I was using the rear camera, and after, I don't know, 5 or so minutes, it let me know that it was getting too hot, so I had to turn the camera off. So I said, my videos are usually normally longer than 5 minutes, so I'm not going to risk that. And then also, I just did some practice shoots, and I don't know if there's something wrong with the phone, or if maybe I'm just bad with it, and I'm one of those average type consumers that just wants a phone that allows for kind of an auto mode, and it just produces the best thing without the user having to do much configuration. Because every time I shoot something on that Sony Xperia, everything just seems so dark. So maybe I'm doing something wrong. It's pretty light in this room. I don't know if you can tell, but I just said, you know what? Let me shoot on this iPhone. And I don't know what I'm going to use to actually get the video off the phone. I have two choices, and I've complained about this plenty of times. So one, of course, is just use the lightning cable and use those USB 2.0 speeds to get the video off the phone onto my PC. Or potentially, I'll maybe give AirDrop a try and AirDrop it from my from this phone to my Mac. So we'll find out. That's not your concern. I just want you to know that I'm not really enjoying the aspect of me having to think about that, because all the other phones that I have, which are Android devices, USB 3 or faster. Nothing for me to really worry about. But of course, this guy, which looking at the screen, the video quality, is pretty good. Everybody talks about how good video quality is on the iPhone. But it's like, all right, well, what are you going to do with that video after you record it? Oh, yeah, about that. So enough about the iPhone and my complaints. On to what you see right in front of you right here. So this is a Samsung Galaxy S22. And I'm a little bit late with this because, all the main YouTube reviewers, or whatever you want to call them, they get their phones sometimes before they're actually released. They have maybe a week or two to spend some time with the phone, give their opinion on it off of that short amount of time. And then they move on to the next device. And there's nothing wrong with that. You can't spend months or years with devices to give your full opinion on everything, especially if that's your actual job, because right around the corner, there's always something new coming out. So I've had this phone, I want to say, since maybe April or May. I know it came out in February of 2022, and I believe I've had it since April or May. And I'll say that so far, it's okay. That's the best that I can give it right now, is simply okay. And you know what? I'm going to complain about something right now. I just realized it. As I'm recording this video on this phone, I can see that I can stop the video, but I can't pause it. And normally what I would do sometimes is pause the video if I needed to go look something up. But it looks like, yeah, I don't want to stop it to then have to, start another video. I kind of just like doing all this in one fell swoop. I'm not great at editing, if you haven't noticed. But yeah, I don't think I have an option to actually pause it. So I'm over here looking at my eBay account just so I can see when exactly I purchased this S22. Because truth be told, and while I'm looking, I'll give you a little bit of background. I bought it once and I returned it, from a seller on eBay. And then I saw it again like a month or so later from another seller, cheaper. And I said, you know what? Let me give it another try. Maybe that price that I paid before, I wasn't satisfied with that. So let me try one more time. And yeah, the first time I paid $500 for it. The second time I paid $400 for it. And I think that might be kind of telling right there, where people are just trying to get rid of the phone because the retail price was $800. And yeah, we're talking, what, 2 months later, we're down to either $300 or $400 off the price. So that's why when I say the phone is okay, that's all I can really say. And I'll tell you why. So first things first is I do like the feel of the phone in the hand. And I'm going to try my best not to cut everything off because I don't want to zoom out, since I don't have 4 cameras on the back of this. But yeah, the feel of the phone is okay in the hand. I do like the fact that it's square, and I was actually just talking to a friend about how that's the direction that the industry is going in right now. And yeah, it feels really good in the hand when it's squared off like this. And um, the screen size is, I prefer smaller phones. I mean, just to give you a reference, they're physically about the same size. This is a Pixel 2 right here. But because there's bezels, I'm not really worried about my hands down here or my thumb down here, nor am I worried about my thumb up here. So I kind of feel like the actual screen real estate is where it should be, even though the phone itself is pretty much the same size. And I must say that aside from that, I don't know if there's anything else like positive I can say. Actually, that's not true. As I look at the screen right here, so the fingerprint reader is really fast. And that is one thing that is definitely superior to any other phone that has an in-display fingerprint reader. But with that, I would also ask, what's the point? Why do we need these under-display fingerprint readers? Why can't we just have dedicated hardware buttons the same way that we have on all these others? So I have that Pixel 2 has a dedicated button on the back. The Sony Xperia has a dedicated button that's integrated into the power button, really. So I just ask, what's the point of the under-display fingerprint reader? Like, what benefit as a consumer are we actually getting from that? So that's that. The battery life is terrible. I don't think I could say it any other way. This past weekend, I drove about an hour, maybe an hour and a half, and I was using GPS, and I had Spotify streaming to my radio, and I don't remember the percentages, but I could see the battery, in the top right corner. And even like right now, it's not looking great. So it's at 48%. It wasn't, I feel like I might have used like close to 20 or so percent of the battery on that hour and a half trip. Just doing, yeah, I am using the phone, Spotify, Bluetooth, Google Maps. I get it, but I still feel like the battery shouldn't die that fast. And I think there's a 3,700 milliamp hour battery. 3,700. So that right there was probably one of several Samsung mistakes when it came to this particular device. In 2022, I don't think a battery should be that small. And of course, if I'm correct, if I remember correctly, I remember Samsung saying, well, the new chip inside, so the Snapdragon, what is it? Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 is so efficient that it won't matter that our battery is too small. And that's just not, that's not a good excuse. It's like, all right, cool. Let's say that this new processor is extremely efficient. Don't make the battery smaller than it was the previous year, because yeah, it was actually a bigger battery last year. I just don't see why they would do that. I mean, it kind of reminds me of the Pixel 4, where it's like, yeah, we put a smaller battery in it. Why? Like, that should never be the case. I mean, at least keep it the same. And if you are claiming that the processor now is more efficient, then we should see drastic or at least some improvement when it comes to battery life. But yeah, don't say, well, this is better, so now we can make this worse. And at best, you'd get maybe some type of equilibrium. We want better. We don't want equal. And I really feel like we actually ended up getting worse because the battery is actually smaller. So battery life is terrible. Now, I will say, because I wrote this down, one of the reasons the battery life might have been so bad on that trip was this is a 5G phone, and I did leave 5G turned on. And I do know that 5G will consume your battery life a little more, but at the same time, it's like, well, if you choose to put a 5G radio in this phone, you need to, Samsung, make the necessary accommodations to make sure that I'm not stranded, on my return trip. I mean, I had a charger in the car, so it wasn't a problem, but there's just so many things that I just don't get. So yeah, new chip, all right, whatever, but smaller battery, okay. Now it's also a 5G phone. Okay, that's definitely going to hit the battery. Now, let me see if I can go in the settings right here, and I will show you this one thing, which yeah, is another reason that the battery life might be bad for some people. So this has one of those adaptive type displays where it can ramp up to 120 hertz and scale down to something else. And in my experience, when I have adaptive set, yes, the battery life is worse, and you can see I have it set for standard. But in the adaptive setting, or while it's set to that, when you're actively using the phone, it ramps up to 120 hertz. And when I say using, I mean literally touching. Um, but then when you're not doing anything, just looking at the phone, it'll scale back down to 24 hertz, 24 hertz. A few times I've seen it actually at 60 hertz while it's in the adaptive mode. But frequently, yeah, it's either 120 while it's physically moving, down to 24 when it's not actually doing anything. So if you're having issues with battery life, consider taking it down to 60 hertz as opposed to 120. But then, yeah, that goes along with the same points that I was attempting to make earlier. Is okay, you're putting all this stuff in this phone. You want the user to be able to use all of these new features, but you give it a smaller battery. So you have to turn some stuff off. And yeah, that's one of the things that I chose to turn off, is the fact that it has the ability or the option for an adaptive refresh rate. So the other thing that I turned off, and let me go ahead and see if I can bring this up quickly. Where is it? Where is it? Of course, I know it's going to be more difficult to find it than it could. And see, on my Galaxy, on this Galaxy, yeah, that's one positive thing. As I mentioned before, I would have paused the video right now, so that way I'm not, you know, using time of looking for this particular setting. Well, what I was looking for is the option for you in the settings to change I guess, the radios that are being used. So you can leave it as a 5G phone and it'll just operate in that capacity all the time. But you can also change it so that way it's only looking or using the 4G or LTE radios. And that will definitely conserve some battery life. So, yeah, I can't find it. Oh well. But what I have done is, even though the phone right now is in airplane mode, I have disabled the 5G radio, if that's how it actually works. It's just looking for LTE now. And yeah, I think that might have helped the battery life had I done that when I was on my trip. But again, that's another thing, another feature that, oh, it's a 5G phone. We need, we need the fastest speeds, the race to 5G, which was an absolute joke and a complete waste of time. And it sucks that we as consumers have to pay more for these phones now because the companies want to put 5G radios in them. Absolutely no reason. I don't say that because that's just the natural progression of technology, but it's not as important as these carriers want us to believe. So this phone is back on LTE. The iPhone that I'm recording on, I've changed that back to regular LTE as well. And yeah, in fact, any phone that I use when I put my SIM card in it, that's not one of the first things that I do, but it is something that I will eventually do because it's just completely, for me at least, unnecessary. Cool. Now, anything else I can tell you about the phone? Is it something you should buy? I would say yes, it's something to consider. And one of the main reasons I say that, as I'm looking at my notes, is that Samsung has promised, I think, 3 to 5 years of software updates and security updates. I don't remember which ones, but overall support for the phone should be relatively good. Definitely in comparison to other Android manufacturers, because yeah, most companies will give you one, maybe two versions of Android updates, and software updates probably stop somewhere along that time as well. Pixel, they're doing their 3 and 5, I think. I don't know what other company. Yeah, between 1 and 2 is what you can hope for other companies, and I'll just leave it at that. But yeah, with Samsung, I am confident that if I do keep this for a little while longer, it'll get Android. What are we up to? 13 now. Don't know exactly when, since as of right now, only Pixel owners have it. But at some point, I'm confident that it will get Android 13. Of course, it'll be One UI 5 probably, since yeah, Android 12 is One UI 4. So that'll be that. There was one other thing I was going to say. I forget. I really see, and I would pause the video right now while I'm gathering my thoughts, but I can't do it because of this stupid iPhone. Okay, but anyway, uh, as with other Samsung phones, it's a really bright screen, a bright screen. It is nice to look at. I will say that. If I'm watching something, it is really nice to look at. Um, I'm really reaching here. Like it is hard for me to even say that this is something that you should consider. I mean, even right now, a lot of the carriers, they aren't giving it away for free, but they are. Oh, sign up and you'll get the phone on us. As a result of bill credits or whatever. I don't think it's really that popular of a phone. Hence why I currently have this listed on eBay and nobody's buying it. So I might take it down and just play around with it some more myself. Now, one thing I wanted to get back to was the whole screen refresh rate. So the 120 hertz ramping down to 24, or you can just leave it at a static 60. I don't like that, okay? The 120 hertz option is nice. I won't say that it isn't. However, I don't care how smooth scrolling is. What I care about is watching content at a high refresh rate. And what ends up happening is you set the screen to adaptive and then, excuse me, and then you play a video. And then because you physically stop interacting with the phone in terms of touch, the screen ramps down to 24 hertz. So now you're watching your content at 24 hertz instead of 120, which for some things might be okay. But for me, like I immediately noticed I had some high definition video that I was watching, and I'm going to make another video comparing this phone and my Sony Xperia, because with the Sony, it just stays at 120 hertz. But I was watching some videos, and yeah, there were in scenes that were relatively high pace, fast moving. There was a lot of stuttering and jitter in the on the screen. Like I was holding my two phones next to each other, and it was smooth on the Sony, but on this thing, yeah, there was glitches. So I don't get the appeal when it comes to, oh well, smoothing and smoothing, scrolling and swiping is so smooth. But when you want to actually watch something that might benefit from a high refresh rate, it doesn't do it. So that for me, I think back then was when I knew I wasn't keeping this thing, or at least didn't want to keep it. But I can imagine, and this is me thinking about the problem that they created when they put this small battery in the phone, is that if we were able to just leave it on 120 all the time, that battery life would be even more garbage than it is now. But at least I'd have the opportunity to watch my content. Maybe I get, one full movie out of it before the phone absolutely died. So, yeah, I am having a hard time recommending this. You shouldn't buy it. Yeah, I don't know what other reviewers have said. They'll probably complain about the battery life as I'm doing. And they'd say, oh, if you want better battery life, you should upgrade to the Galaxy S22 Plus, which I did have at the same time that I had this. But somebody bought it from me already. So I had them both of these up on eBay at the same time, and somebody purchased that one. So yeah, I would agree with that statement that, yeah, since it has a bigger battery, the battery life on it is just going to be better. But also, as I've complained, these phones are just getting too big. Like this is 6.1 inches. That S22 was 6.6 inches. X22 Plus was 6.6 inches. So yeah, we're just talking massive phones now. And if that's not what you want, it sucks that you have to get penalized because it sucks that you have to get penalized as a result of you wanting a smaller phone. Like, oh, you small phone, small battery. And I get, when it comes to the geometry of the device, yeah, I get that. But 3,700 milliamp hours was way too small. 4,500, which is in the big boy, that would have been appropriate for a phone this size. And then I don't think we we wouldn't have really we wouldn't have many complaints. So yeah, I did like that phone, the S22 Plus. It did feel nice in the hands, but yeah, as I mentioned, it was too big of a phone for me, and I said, you know what, I'm going to part ways with that. But everything that I said in terms of the refresh rate doing what it does, The screen brightness being nice. There's no headphone jack, so if that's something you're looking for, you shouldn't expect it anymore. There's also no SD card slot, so if that's something you're looking for, they've done away with those. It's a 5G phone too. So yeah, normally I feel like I have something better to say. Like normally I'm in support of whatever device that I own. Like, but yeah, I can't. This is something that you just shouldn't buy. So don't waste your time. Don't waste your money. I'm not going to say, oh, if you want Samsung, go buy, one of the AC. Like, no, just I'm not a huge fan of any of their phones, and that's probably some bias that I need to get over. But one thing from the past, I do remember it would be like, oh yeah, the Android and Samsung, you would kind of think of them synonymously, even though I know you shouldn't. But it'd be like, oh yeah, those Samsung phones, those battery lives are just terrible. And here we are, however many years later, and I'm still saying the same thing about a phone where they know they could have put a bigger battery in here, given one what year we're in, and two, how many features they decided to give the phone that would eat up battery life. So, so yeah, this is a phone I think you should definitely skip. And based off of how the phone is selling and people not buying it from me and how carriers are giving it away, I think people have made their decision that this is a phone that most people should pass on. And now that I'm thinking about it, I think I should have passed on it too.